Hello again. Thanks for coming to the table. I just want to start firstly on the Respectful Relationships programs, as they're called. There's been quite a bit of interest expressed to me through various women's groups about implementing those programs throughout schools as a driver of cultural change. Do you have any plans to implement those or similar programs more broadly than currently?
Kate McKenzie, Group Manager, Multicultural Settlement Services and Communities. That is identified as one of the 26 actions in the second action plan, and governments are working together towards that aim at the moment.
Okay. Is there any more detail you can provide about how far the plans are to expand that, for example, or any more detail around that?
Well, at the moment, education ministers are talking about what's in the national curriculum, and there's been discussions between state and territory and Commonwealth ministers about the national curriculum, and those discussions are ongoing. So there's really nothing more I can say at this stage.
Okay, so this is couched in that there's no sort of extracurricular way of tacking this on. This has to happen in the course of those national curriculum discussions?
Well, there's a couple of different ways of it happening. Currently, a lot of schools have respectful relationships programs, and they are expanding them. There are so that's one way in terms of people picking it up in a voluntary kind of way. But in terms of it becoming an accepted part of the national curriculum, then that's really something for COAG ministers to consider.
Okay, thank you. If it wasn't, I have one too. Do you mind if I? Okay.
How is it funded now, Ms McKenzie, in terms of respectful relationships? Because you said governments were looking at it. Do we have a table about where there's any investment from state governments into this as well? So we've got federal government money, state government money, and we've also got money from organisations such as White Ribbon. So do we have a table anywhere that shows how this works?
No, I'm not aware of a table. Certainly the Commonwealth funded some respectful relationships programs in schools, and I know there's respectful relationships in schools in both South Australia and Northern Territory, and Victoria has asked Our Watch to do some respectful relationship schools in things in Victoria. My understanding is it's also up to individual schools who are going ahead and getting their own respectful relationships work done.
They're running bake sales, Ms McKenzie, to fund their respectful relationship, but there's nowhere in the current documentation that can tell us what's going on and who's funding it.
We certainly haven't monitored that, no.
Okay. Sorry, Larissa, I just had that one on my list.
I too had a question on that. I'm still a little unclear. Is there currently any federal funding allocated specifically to the development and rollout of those respectful relationships programs?
Not through DSS, no.
Okay, so even though it sits under the national plan, which has got its 100 and whatever million over 4 years, is it able to access some of that money, or would it need to have a specific amount tied to it that it doesn't have clearly?
What happened initially in the Respectful Relationships program is the Commonwealth put in a considerable amount of money into having some respectful relationships demonstration projects, and they were chosen across Australia. Then those were then evaluated, and the idea being that they would end up with guidelines then for how respectful relationship programs could be run. So that's what the Commonwealth financing has been. The Commonwealth's work in relation to primary prevention is now, to a large extent, being taken forward by Our Watch and the Commonwealth funding of Our Watch.
Okay, I want to come to that in just a sec, but just sticking with the respectful relationships. So it's one of 26 actions under the plan, but it's not specifically funded because that process of piloting and evaluation is now finished. Is that correct?
No, I think both of those facts are correct. Yes, but the respectful relationships programs are generally funded by state governments, not by the Commonwealth government. The Commonwealth government went in to do the pilot with the projects to end up with the guidelines that could then be used by schools in determining what was the kind of respectful relationship program they wanted. Because one of the problems that is around at the moment is that a number of different organisations are offering different respectful relationships programs into schools. And schools don't necessarily know how to make the decisions about which is the respectful relationships program that they think would be most appropriate in their environment.
And is the Commonwealth providing any assistance to them to make that decision? Or?
Well, that's what the guidelines will do.
Right, I see. So those guidelines are yet to be finished?
They are underway at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Where, Ms Mackenzie?
Pardon?
Where?
Well, we had the University of Queensland did an evaluation,
Yes,
and
so
they've
that's
provided.
what I was trying to get. You accuse work here.
Yes, and they've provided us with a draft report. They mainly looked at the first 2 rounds of the Respectful Relationships projects. Since then, we've had a 3rd round, which we're also looking at, and then finalising the report.
Okay,
So we would
thank you.
expect the report to be out sometime this year.
All right,
Public?
thank you. Sometime this
Public?
year.
Public, of course.
Public, of course, yes.
Right.
I wish
well-
every answer was that, of course.
I think in this particular instance, it's not going to be much use if the report wasn't public if we are wanting schools to be able
use
to
it as
use
a
it
guideline,
to
precisely.
choose the right program.
Could you take on notice for me, Ms Mackenzie, because we're a little bit short on time, of the 26 actions, are there any others that are not specifically funded by the federal government? I don't need to know that now because it'll probably take too long, but you've said that that's now one of them, so I'm interested in if there's any others as well. So I'll leave that with you on notice. Unless there's something burning to add now.
Yes. No, I think I have to explain that because the states and territories fund respectful
Yes,
relationship
I'm not claiming they're
programs.
unfunded, I'm just interested in the Commonwealth money.
No, we funded the pilot projects and the guidelines.
Yes, understood.
That is the job that we've done. So it's not that there is no Commonwealth funding, it's that the role of the Commonwealth has been clearly delineated.
Okay, and was that role delineated clearly in the action, in the plan?
I think so. I think it's... Well, certainly it's clear with the states and territories. They
Right.
understand our role. And,
Okay, well, I guess that's
and
my
we
point.
understand
Can
our
you
role in
enumerate
relation
for
to
me
that.
if there's any of those other actions whereby the funding commitment is either nil or limited, given that that's perceived to be another organisation's responsibility?
We'll take that on notice.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Now, just back to the curriculum. I hear that the national curriculum process is underway. I get that. Are there any other ways of encouraging schools to voluntarily adopt that respectful relationship program outside of the national curriculum? You said some are doing it voluntarily anyway. Is that something that the Commonwealth is encouraging?
It's something that we're encouraging, of course, but the White Ribbon is encouraging it, and they have a respectful relationships program that they run in schools. Our Watch is doing a program in Victoria. That the Victorian government has paid for. There are a number of organisations around that deliver that and that are fairly active in talking with people about taking one of their programs on. So it isn't a matter of I think schools not being aware that this is something that can be done.
Sure. Okay. Well, I want to move on now just to other primary prevention work, which we started to touch on earlier. You said that the bulk of that is being, or you said it's largely being done by Our Watch, and across the good work that they're doing, and credit to them for so doing. Is there any other primary prevention work that's happening under the auspices of the plan, outside of what Our Watch is doing?
Well, certainly what White Ribbon is doing is also primary prevention work. That's an important thing.
Sure.
And then what
I guess by the Commonwealth, I thought that was an implicit parameter.
I think I should take that on notice because at the moment things aren't coming to the top of my mind, but I have a doubt that that means the Commonwealth isn't doing things.
All right,
I
thank
think
you.
the
Well, I'll
Commonwealth is
await that.
actually involved in other primary prevention.